For far too long, our continent has been a playground for foreign interests, a marketplace where the resources, labor, and dignity of our people have been traded away for the benefit of outsiders. This pattern has repeated itself across centuries. Colonial powers once came in ships and uniforms. Today they come in business suits and investment deals. The face may have changed, the contracts may be printed on paper instead of forced at gunpoint, but the essence of exploitation remains the same. This is not merely about trade, this is about power, economic power, political influence, and cultural domination. Those who claim to be partners in progress are in reality architects of dependency. They build businesses in our soil, not to grow our people, but to root themselves into our land in ways that allow them to control the flow of wealth, dictate political direction, and silence any voices that dare question their intentions. Some will tell you that shutting down such businesses is reckless, that it sends the wrong message to the world, that it scares away foreign investment. But what kind of investment is it if it strips us of our independence? What value is there in deals that enrich only the foreigner, while leaving the local worker underpaid, overworked, and powerless? We have been told for decades that we cannot survive without them. That narrative was a weapon, a psychological chain meant to convince us that liberation was too costly, too risky, too unrealistic. But history teaches us otherwise. Every people who have stood for their dignity have faced this same choice, to live comfortably under subjugation or to take the hard road of self-reliance and sovereignty. It is never easy to remove the hands that have been feeding on your labor, because those hands will not release you willingly. They will threaten, they will smear, they will try to destabilize your economy, they will whisper to your allies to turn against you. But if we fear these things, we will never be free. Across this continent, the wounds of exploitation are not abstract. They are visible in the poverty that surrounds mines rich in gold, diamonds, and rare earth minerals, resources worth billions that are extracted and shipped abroad, while the very communities that host them live without clean water or basic health care. They are visible in the farmland purchased not to feed our people, but to feed distant nations, while we import food at inflated prices. They are visible in the ports, airports, and industrial zones, where the flags may be local, but the ownership and profits are foreign. Those who came under the banner of investment did not come to share prosperity, but to monopolize it. They set up enterprises that drain more wealth than they produce locally. They secure exclusive rights to resources and services that should belong to the people. They lobby to shape laws that protect their profits at the expense of our environment, our workers, and our future generations. And when they are challenged, when someone dares to question their so-called partnership, they respond not with dialogue, but with pressure. Economic pressure, political pressure, even military pressure through their allies. They have been protected for so long by the illusion that they are too powerful to be opposed. Today that illusion is shattered. The decision to remove these businesses from our soil is not an act of hostility toward any people, it is an act of love toward our own. It is the declaration that our land is not for sale, our future is not for rent, and our dignity cannot be bought. It is a reminder to the world that Africa is not a hunting ground for foreign profit seekers, but a home for proud, independent nations that will decide their own destiny. The predictable reaction from those affected is outrage. They will call it discrimination. They will call it an attack on free trade. They will call it a violation of agreements. But what they will not admit is the truth, that their presence here was built on unequal terms, that their profits came at the expense of our sovereignty, and that they never intended to leave voluntarily. Some foreign leaders will be stunned, even humiliated, that their influence could be defied so directly. They have grown used to African leaders bowing their heads, to decisions being made behind closed doors in foreign capitals, rather than in the streets and hearts of our people. Their shock is not at the act itself, but at the fact that someone dared to act at all. This is not the first time Africa has faced such a turning point. From the days of liberation struggles against colonial powers to the more recent battles against exploitative trade agreements, our history is filled with moments when we had to say no, even when the price of saying no was high. Every generation is given its test, and this is ours. Critics will warn of retaliation. They will say that powerful nations will punish us economically, that we will lose markets, that our currency will fall, that investors will flee. But what they will not tell you is that the dependence they warn about is exactly why we must act. As long as our survival depends on the goodwill of those who exploit us, we will never be truly sovereign. True independence means being willing to endure short-term hardship for long-term freedom. We must also be honest about what comes next. Removing foreign businesses is not enough. We must fill the gap with local enterprise, with regional trade, with partnerships based on equality and mutual respect. We must ensure that the industries they leave behind are taken over by our own people, that workers are protected, and that profits are reinvested in our communities. If we do not replace the foreign monopoly with local empowerment, then we have only changed the face of our oppressor. Our neighbors will watch closely, some will be inspired, others will be cautious, but make no mistake, the ripple effect has already begun. Once one nation takes this stand, it becomes harder for others to justify staying silent. The idea spreads that Africa need not be a subordinate in the global order, that we can negotiate as equals, that we can protect our resources without fear of isolation. The world is changing, and Africa must decide whether it will change on its own terms or on terms dictated by others. The power structures that have kept us divided and dependent are cracking. The nations that once dictated the rules are finding that their influence is no longer absolute. This is the moment to assert ourselves, not with empty words, but with decisive action. Some will say this decision was too bold. I say it was long overdue. For decades we have tolerated exploitation dressed as cooperation. We have endured the theft of our wealth while being told it was the price of progress. We have been made to feel that questioning these arrangements was dangerous, ungrateful, even self-destructive. But the truth is, nothing is more dangerous than doing nothing. The businesses that leave will not destroy us, they will free us. They will free us from the silent control they have exercised over our politics, our media, our markets, and even our culture. They will free us from the false belief that we cannot thrive without them, and in that freedom, we will find the strength to build something better. Let it be known to all, Africa is not closing its doors to the world, but it will no longer open them to those who come to exploit. We welcome trade, but only on fair terms. We welcome investment, but only if it uplifts our people. We welcome friendship, but only with those who respect our sovereignty. This is not the end, it is the beginning of a new chapter in which Africa writes its own economic story, in which our children inherit not a land leased to foreign powers, but a land owned, nurtured, and defended by its own people. We stand today not in defiance for the sake of defiance, but in defense of something greater than profit, greater than politics, our right to exist as free people in a free land. That is the cause worth every sacrifice, worth every challenge, worth every risk. And to those beyond our borders who wonder if Africa is ready for such independence, I say we have been ready for centuries. What we lacked was not capacity, but the willingness to break the chains. Those chains are broken now, and there is no turning back. Foreign-owned businesses in Africa have often operated on unequal terms, draining resources and profits while leaving local communities underdeveloped. Removing exploitative enterprises is an act of protecting sovereignty, ensuring Africa's wealth benefits its own people, rather than serving foreign powers. Economic independence may bring short-term hardships, but it is necessary for long-term freedom and self-reliance. The gap left by foreign companies must be filled with local and regional enterprises, reinvesting profits into African communities. This decisive action sends a message to the world that Africa will welcome trade and investment only on fair and respectful terms. For decades, foreign-owned businesses operating across Africa have benefited disproportionately from the continent's abundant resources, strategic location, and untapped markets. These enterprises, often backed by powerful nations or multinational corporations, have structured agreements and contracts in a way that heavily favors their own interests. While they present themselves as partners in development, their operations frequently prioritize profit extraction over the well-being of local communities. The result has been a system where the majority of revenue generated leaves the continent, while the infrastructure, wages, and benefits for the local population remain minimal. This imbalance has deep roots in historical patterns of exploitation. Agreements are often signed under conditions of economic pressure, where struggling governments are forced to accept unfavorable terms in exchange for investments or loans. In many cases, the expertise, technology, and machinery brought in from abroad are used as leverage, justifying lopsided profit-sharing arrangements. Instead of fostering genuine skills transfer or building local industries, these businesses often keep high-level operations and decision-making under foreign control, leaving Africans in lower-paying, labor-intensive positions. The economic consequences of this arrangement are far-reaching. It creates dependency, weakens local industries, and limits opportunities for homegrown innovation. African entrepreneurs and local companies are often unable to compete with well-funded foreign entities that benefit from subsidies, tax breaks, or special privileges. This not only stifles domestic growth, but also ensures that foreign corporations remain the dominant force in key sectors such as mining, energy, telecommunications, and agriculture. Beyond the financial losses, the social implications are equally damaging. Local communities whose lands and resources are often exploited may see little improvement in their quality of life. Environmental degradation, displacement, and poor labor conditions are common, while promises of community development projects are either delayed or delivered on a token scale. This perpetuates a cycle of resentment and mistrust as people witness their wealth being extracted while poverty persists. True economic partnership must be built on mutual respect, fair profit sharing, and a commitment to uplifting local communities. Africa has the potential to not only control its resources, but also to add value through local industries, creating jobs and fostering sustainable growth. The challenge lies in breaking free from exploitative arrangements and establishing economic policies that put the interests of the people first. Only then can the continent fully benefit from the wealth it has so long provided to others. Removing exploitive enterprises is more than just an economic decision. It is a decisive step toward reclaiming sovereignty and ensuring that a nation's destiny is determined by its own people. When foreign corporations or entities operate under conditions that strip away local control, exploit natural resources, and return minimal benefits to the host country, they become instruments of external influence. This influence is often subtle, but deeply corrosive, eroding the ability of a nation to set its own priorities and manage its own wealth. By removing such enterprises, a country asserts its right to control its economy, protect its people, and decide its future without external interference. These exploitative operations are rarely neutral actors. Their presence is usually tied to political pressure, unequal trade agreements, and the economic weight of their home countries. They operate within a system that allows them to dictate prices, set terms of labor, and determine how much of the generated wealth remains in the country. This dynamic does not just weaken the economy, it undermines political independence, as governments can be pressured to make decisions favoring foreign interests over national needs. Removing these enterprises disrupts that power structure, creating space for policies driven by the will of the people. The act also sends a clear message to the world. The days of unchecked exploitation are over. It forces a shift in relationships between the host country and international partners, compelling foreign investors to engage on fair and transparent terms. This realignment opens the door for partnerships based on equality, where profits are shared fairly, skills are transferred, and industries are built to benefit the local population rather than distant shareholders. Beyond economics, removing such enterprises is about dignity and self-respect. A nation that controls its own resources and industries signals to its citizens that their land, labor, and heritage are not for sale. It creates the foundation for sustainable development driven from within, fostering industries that reflect the unique strengths and needs of the country. This empowerment can inspire other nations facing similar struggles, building a larger movement toward true independence. In the end, removing exploitative enterprises is not isolationism, it is the pursuit of justice. It is about breaking free from dependency, dismantling systems of manipulation, and ensuring that sovereignty is not just a word in a constitution, but a lived reality for every citizen. It is the beginning of economic freedom and the end of silent submission. Economic independence often comes with a price, and that price can be felt most sharply in the short term. When a nation decides to break free from systems of dependency, it inevitably disrupts established trade routes, financial agreements, and business partnerships that may have been in place for decades. The immediate effect can be shortages of certain goods, spikes in prices, and even temporary unemployment in sectors tied to foreign investment. These hardships are real, and they can test the resilience of the population, but they are also a necessary part of the transition toward a future where economic decisions are made for the benefit of the people, not for the profits of outside powers. Short-term difficulties are not signs of failure, they are signs of change. A nation that has long been dependent on imported goods or dictated trade terms will need time to adapt its industries, train its workforce, and strengthen its domestic production. During this adjustment period, sacrifices are often required, and the temptation to return to the old dependent systems can be strong. However, the long-term benefits of economic independence far outweigh the initial struggles, because once a nation has control over its resources, its markets, and its economic policies, it can build a foundation that cannot be easily manipulated or exploited by outside forces. The path toward independence also fosters innovation and creativity. When foreign corporations withdraw or lose their monopoly, local entrepreneurs and producers have the opportunity to rise and fill the gap. This can lead to the growth of homegrown industries, the strengthening of small businesses, and the creation of new jobs that are anchored in the local economy. It also allows for policies that prioritize sustainability and social welfare over rapid exploitation of resources. Economic independence requires patience and vision. Leaders must prepare their people for the reality that progress may not be immediate, but rather a gradual process of building something stronger and more self-reliant. Citizens, in turn, must understand that enduring the short-term pain is an investment in their collective future. Ultimately, the short-term hardships are not a setback. They are a rite of passage. They are the proof that a nation has chosen to stand on its own feet, chart its own course, and determine its own destiny. Once the transition is complete, the benefits will not only be economic, but also political and cultural, cementing true sovereignty for generations to come. When foreign companies withdraw from a nation, they often leave behind not just empty offices or shuttered factories, but an economic vacuum. This gap, if left unfilled, can create disruptions in supply chains, loss of jobs, and reduced access to goods and services. However, this moment of absence can also be a turning point, a rare and powerful opportunity to rebuild the economy in a way that truly serves the people. The responsibility then falls on local and regional enterprises to step in, not as mere replacements, but as drivers of a new economic vision built on fairness, sustainability, and self-reliance. Local enterprises have the unique advantage of understanding the culture, needs, and priorities of the communities they serve. They are not motivated solely by profit margins dictated from a distant corporate boardroom. Instead, their success is tied directly to the prosperity of the society around them. When the gap left by foreign corporations is filled with homegrown businesses, wealth circulates within the country instead of being extracted and sent abroad. This means that profits can be reinvested into infrastructure, education, and innovation, creating a ripple effect that strengthens the entire economy. Regional cooperation is equally vital. Neighboring nations facing similar challenges can work together to build interconnected supply chains, share technology, and expand markets for locally produced goods. Such partnerships reduce dependency on distant, foreign-controlled markets and create resilience in the face of global disruptions. When regional enterprises collaborate, they form an economic network that can stand strong against external pressures. The transition is not without its challenges. Local businesses may initially lack the scale, capital, or technology to compete with the efficiency of foreign companies, but with the right policies such as access to financing, training programs, and government support, these enterprises can grow to meet domestic needs and even expand beyond national borders. This process also creates space for innovation, as local entrepreneurs develop solutions tailored to the unique realities of their own environment. Filling the gap with local and regional enterprises is more than an economic strategy, it is a statement of independence. It sends a clear message that a nation's prosperity will no longer be built on dependency, but on the skills, creativity, and determination of its own people. By choosing this path, a country not only strengthens its economy, but also takes a decisive step toward reclaiming its sovereignty and shaping a future that is truly its own. This decisive action sends a message to the world that the era of quiet compliance and silent suffering has ended. It is a clear signal that nations once treated as mere pawns in global power games will no longer accept the terms dictated by external forces. The move declares, with unwavering confidence, that a people's dignity is not negotiable and their sovereignty is not for sale. It challenges the long-standing assumption that powerful nations and corporations can act without consequence, exploiting resources and controlling economies as if ownership was their birthright. To the world, this action speaks not only of resistance but of renewal. It says that the foundation of a just international order must rest on mutual respect, fairness, and the recognition of equal rights for all nations. No longer will decisions that determine a people's fate be made in faraway boardrooms or political chambers where their voices are absent. Instead, the message is that every nation has both the right and the will to determine its own future, free from intimidation or manipulation. The ripple effect of such an action extends far beyond one country's borders. Other nations, especially those that have endured similar patterns of exploitation, watch closely. They see that defiance is possible, that standing firm is not merely symbolic, but can trigger real change. It inspires the oppressed, unsettles the comfortable, and warns those who benefit from injustice that their grip on power is loosening. This is not just about one act. It's about the idea that a new chapter in global relations is being written, one where equality is not just spoken of, but enforced. Of course, the world's response will be mixed. Some will view it as bold and necessary, a long overdue stand against imbalance. Others will brand it as reckless or confrontational, seeking to discredit the motives behind it. But regardless of the interpretation, the fact remains that the message cannot be ignored. It forces conversations in diplomatic halls, it unsettles markets, and it shifts the tone of negotiations. Ultimately, this is more than a political statement, it is a moral one. It tells the world that a nation's freedom is worth any price, and that sovereignty must be defended with action, not just words. The message is not whispered, it is proclaimed loudly and unapologetically, so that even those who wish to ignore it will still hear it. In doing so, it reshapes not only how one nation is seen, but how all nations will choose to stand in the years to come.